nose. I've got a headache, feeling a bit nauseous. So I might not be as animated as usual. Apologies for that if I'm not. But yeah, I've got two things I could possibly blame. I could blame Brexit or I could blame COVID. And I'm gonna go with Brexit on this one. It's definitely Brexit's fault that I have a headache at the moment, which really sucks. If anyone's out there watching this, if you'd like to drop me a message, I'm going to see if my chat window here is actually working. So just say hello or something like that, and we'll see if that works. If not, I'll just hurriedly try and run around on the internet trying to get everything up and running. From my streaming monitor here, I can see that it's a couple of seconds behind me, I think. I'll go and check on YouTube. So I've got my laptop here. This is all very technical. I should have a producer. Doing this, but I'm producing it myself, obviously, as you can tell. So I'm just going to go into YouTube. Where do I go on YouTube? Go live, I think. Go live. Okay. Right, brilliant. Okay, so hopefully I should be streaming on everything. I should be streaming on well, not everything, but on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Twitch. No new message. Oh yes, we have a new message. Who's this? We have Goffy saying, "Greetings from Germany." This comes up really small on my screen, so I'm going to just have to make that a little bit bigger there, if you don't mind. Yeah, there we go. Brilliant. Haha, fantastic. Sally Al Winton says, "Hi, find you on Facebook today." That's good. Taki says, "Hello." Hi, Taki. Neil's there, Neil UK. Hello. Brilliant. Right, I've got people. We've got people signed in, logged into various applications, and they can actually see me, which is good. And hopefully they can hear me as well. You look like you're on a ledge, ready to jump. Goodbye, cruel world. Aye! No, it's just a green screen. It's just a green screen, which I haven't even checked whether the green screen settings are right. There's probably loads of little artifacts, they call them, artifacts on the table here. Anyway, listen, right. Big news today. Big news. First of all, the first person has got the vaccine against COVID-19. This could be the end of this absolute COVID nightmare that we've been living through for most of this year. Which is fantastic, fantastic news. The first person to get it was a 90-year-old lady from Northern Ireland, I think, although she wasn't living in Northern Ireland. So I think they're giving out to people who are over 90 first, and then after that they'll be rolling it out to, well, the second person to get it was William Shakespeare. So he's like 400 years old. So I think it's, if you're over 90, if you're over 400, then you get the vaccine first. That seems sensible to me. But yeah, obviously step in the right direction. I'm very happy that this is actually happening. Okay, I'm not so much of a worldly cynic, although I do like the joke that the lady who has been vaccinated against COVID-19, the deadliest virus that has hit the world since the 1919 flu pandemic, which killed millions of people. It killed more people than died in World War I. And now we are here, 1.5 million people dead later, dealing with this whole crisis, which has been dealt with very much better by some places in the world, like New Zealand and Thailand and Vietnam, China, South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, I could go on. And it's been handled absolutely catastrophically awfully by the British government and the American government, headed up respectively by Boris Dickhead Johnson, scruffy arsehole born in New York, and Donald Trump, scruffy arsehole born in New York, both into vast sums of wealth and fortune. Fortune meaning both luck and money in this case. Slightly more unlucky though for poor old Boris. Yeah, my heart bleeds. Johnson, the scumbag Prime Minister that we have, is gone to Brussels today. Why has he gone to Brussels, I hear you ask? Walter says, "Hi from Scotland. Nice to see the vaccinations have started." Agreed. John O'Sullivan says, "Can hear you and see you." Yes, thank you, John. He doesn't say whether that's a good thing or not, but thank you. Hi all, from Too Much 77. We've got Chris Kopek says hi. We've got Marilena saying, "Hello people." Taki's saying the Pfizer approved in the UK is the perfect example of international cooperation, which the idiots who support Brexit reject. Yes, you're talking about a Turkish couple in Germany, who live in Germany, developing a vaccine in Belgium with the assistance of a major pharmaceutical firm, Pfizer, which is American. So yes, a huge international effort, but we bought it first. It's like elbowing everyone out the way, innit? Going to buy a PlayStation 5 and going, I deserve credit for this. I deserve credit for the making of the PlayStation 5. It wouldn't exist had I not elbowed everyone out the way to get to the front of the queue. But it's not quite what happened, because obviously the strict procedures that the British, what's it called? Is it NICE? Is it NICE? The people who do the make sure that medicines are safe, basically. It's still rigorous. It's not run by Boris Johnson, and hopefully I can put some trust in that. But yeah, Boris Johnson, he's gone to Brussels. I would like to know whether he's gone by plane, or by train, or on his knees. I think that it is on his knees. You see, there's only a couple of outcomes of this. One is that he gets a deal, but it's a shit deal. And everyone's going to say, oh my God, you couldn't even get a good deal. And how embarrassing was it that you went on your knees to Brussels to beg them for a deal? Or he says, no deal. In which case, it's even worse, because it's like, so you debased yourself and the United Kingdom by going to Brussels on your knees, begging for a deal, which apparently we don't need. Apparently, we will prosper without a deal, which makes it all the more weird why people are so adamant that we get one on the Tory benches, because it's like, hang on, I thought you said we would prosper. Literally, a tweet sent out last week that said we would prosper under no deal. It doesn't look like that's the case. It looks like we're going to do the absolute opposite of that. We're going to land flat on our faces, and there's going to be shortages, as we spoke about yesterday, and as we were speaking about for the last 4 years. There's going to be shortages of food and of medicines and of fuel as a result of Brexit. And why? Well, because things are going to get held up at the ports. We are an island. We can't change geography. And this is something that the geographically challenged amongst us don't seem to get a hold of. Now, one of the frustrations for me in my life is Brexit, but another one is the fact that when I did my GCSEs, I wasn't allowed to do history and geography. And I'm a firm believer, as I've said many times, that you can't understand history, you can't understand politics, unless you understand geography, because it's all so very interconnected. As anyone who's read Jared Diamond's Guns, Germs and Steel will be able to tell you, or anyone who casually asks, where have all the Caribs gone? The Caribbean, named after the Caribs. Where are they? Who knows? Maybe they were wiped out by the Europeans coming over there in their ships, which the Caribs didn't have, and with their smallpox, which also the Caribs didn't have. We're going to be stuck in this situation where we're an island, we're trying to get stuff in, but everything's got to be checked and double checked and triple checked. Imagine you have a lorry, a 40-foot lorry with a container on the back, and you're trying to drive it into the UK. The way that they're trying to put it across is there'll just be an app. They'll just check your app on the phone. It'll be fine. They'll wave you through. But that's not the way it's going to work, because they have to check. They have to check every single box coming in, which means opening the damn thing. And you can't open a container, a shipping container, in less than 10 minutes and see it on its way. And if the stuff inside the container or the van or the lorry or whatever it is mixed, you might have a job on your hands looking at what all the different things in the lorry are and whether they tally up with what's on the piece of paper or the app. And you can't x-ray these things. You're going to x-ray a truck going through. They do x-ray trucks to see if they're full of drugs or contraband or people hiding in the truck. They don't do it. They don't do it to check what is actually in the truck. Okay, where it was made, what the rules of origin are, what the tariffs need to be, all that kind of stuff that isn't checked. And so here we go. Medicines. medicines, this is going to be massive. There's going to have to be a triage situation in the United Kingdom in which people who need the medicines the most get the medicines, and the people who don't need the medicines to stay alive don't get the medicines. Okay, so that sounds fair enough in a war situation, but we're not at war. Again, I will stress, we are not at war yet. And we've done this to ourselves. And if you are suffering from a chronic illness that you require repeat medications for, there's a good chance that your medications might not come 1 month. And that's it. You're just in pain for a month. And woe betide anyone watching this who has pets. Do you have a cat? A dog that you love? A horse, perhaps? Good luck getting medicine for them next year after Brexit. I mean, next month, actually. This is going to be huge. I mean, obviously, we've stockpiled what we can. But at some point, there's going to be a situation where you go to the vet and you say, I need this to keep my dog alive. And the vet's going to say, sorry, I can't get hold of it at the moment. There are shortages. Why are there shortages? Is there a war on? No, it's because of Brexit. That's it. So, you're in pain. Your dog's dead. It's because of Brexit. And let's not beat around the bush here. Let's not hug a leaver, because I'm not one of them. I mean, a leaver or someone who would want to hug leavers. I do place a lot of blame at the door of people who are so full of hatred that they were blinded to what is best for the nation. And I found it very hilarious yesterday when an MP put on his Facebook page, Tory MP, he was signing a letter. This is in the time of a national crisis. This is in time of a pandemic which has killed more people in the United Kingdom than in any other country in Europe. And they've written a letter saying that Union Jacks or the Union flag should fly from every public building, school, hospital, town hall in the country. Hashtag priorities. The irony being that they actually put in the letter at all times. So they'll be flying them in the middle of the night. They'll be flying them when it's rainy, but they won't be flying them after 2022 because it won't be our flag anymore because Scotland's leaving. And if anyone thinks that Scotland isn't leaving, oh my God, they're so eyeing the door. It's ridiculous. It's like, when your friends, that their marriage isn't quite working and you can tell, they don't say anything, but you can tell. And they delude themselves. No, we're fine. Outward appearances, it's all going fine. And you're not surprised when you get the message that it's gone to, arbitration, divorce courts, whatever divorced people do. I don't know. I've never been married, and hopefully I'll never be divorced. I always feel like it should be a lot more difficult to get married and a lot easier to get divorced. But that's just me. The idea of getting married and having all that thing, and then getting divorced. I know this is going to piss off a lot of my divorced friends and some people that I know and love very much are divorced. But don't you think they should buy all their friends who came to their wedding a dress? Or at least, I don't know, buy them all a toaster or whatever it was they got for their wedding, because they got everyone together for a big party and said, hey, yeah, this is going to be great. Everyone goes out and buys a dress for loads of money. Well, not everybody. Obviously, some people don't wear dresses at weddings. Like myself, I wear a skirt instead. I think you should. Anyway, why am I talking about getting divorced? Oh, because we're getting divorced from Europe. Ah, that's right. And today, Boris Johnson has gone to Brussels on his hands and knees to beg for a deal that we don't need because suddenly uplands or something. I'm going to dive into some of the messages here. This is going to be fun, I think. Someone saying they didn't want a deal. Oh, I see. So that's coming up there. Right. Okay. All right. Yeah. Great. All right. I've got this. I've always got this. One of the annoying things about the software that I'm using to put the messages up on the screen here is that, where's John Craven? It's from Mike. All right, Mike. He's doing Country File now, isn't he? Or I think he's retired. Is he still with us? Oh, it's the anniversary of John Lennon's death today. It's the 40th anniversary of John Lennon being shot by someone who shouldn't have had a gun, but did because America. So yeah. So actually, this is quite good because you can see what messages I am looking at. Oh, this is great. So I can go back a little bit, and it won't seem so weird. Like, because if you just have the auto chat thing going on YouTube, it comes up with the last messages at the bottom, and I might have scrolled back up to have a look at some of the ones that I've missed. By plane, train, or on his knees. Yes, I said that. Taki says Bojo went to Brussels. Bojo went to Brussels to ask the EU to give him a crappy bare bones deal so he can brag about it to the British people. Yeah. The best deal for Bojo to deliver is no deal. I punish the EU for the ERG, letting them make billions. And in 2021, when the damage is visible, he'll agree to everything the EU puts in front. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. No deal won't be forever. No deal will be until we get a deal. It'll just take longer. But in the interim, we're going to be in so much trouble. Peter says, good afternoon, Hughes. I'm hoping I'm saying... Peter Zaslonka. I hope I'm saying Peter right. Is it just Peter? If I'm saying it wrong, tell me. Sally Ann Winton said, did you see Phil Morehouse's video this morning? He thinks Johnson wants a no deal now to please the disaster capitalists, then to have the glory of getting a last minute deal in January. Going to be unrest either way though. Yes, because every civilization is only 3 meals away from anarchy. Arnold Rimmer, James, what's it called? Red Dwarf. Keep up the good work, Graham. That's from Denise from the library. Hi, Denise. And also, go to a library and borrow books next year because obviously libraries, along with farmhouses and clubs and bars, restaurants, live music venues have been massively, massively hit by COVID. And we need to help them get back on their feet and get together again, which will be fantastic. Hopefully, we'll have enough of the vaccine rolled out by February the 28th to have a big, massive Global Scouse Day next year. So hopefully, we'll all be able to get together as a city and have a jolly good knees up and some Scouse. That's a huge chat. The Tories are full of ownership of Brexit and should answer for all the harms Brexit will bring to the UK. Yes, Taki, they will answer. Well, we will endeavour to try and make them answer, but we need some support in doing that. But I'm fed up of waiting and expecting the usual suspects to actually pull up much of a fight. So this is why I'm doing these. I'm chatting to you now, and yeah, you can send me any messages you like. Gillian's watching from Sicily. Hi! Ready for the blame game to begin. Our biggest trading partner is abandoning us and then making it our fault. So long and thanks for all the fish. John Lynch there. It's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference. What do we want fish? I went on about fish yesterday. I mean, seriously, fish is like 0.1% of our GDP. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And when I was talking about geography before, this is where the geographically challenged really get my goat, okay? So I didn't study geography at GCSE or A level, unfortunately. However, I did visit every country in the world without flying. I sometimes mention it. To do that, my geographical knowledge had to be pretty bang on. And at the moment, I can probably draw you a picture of the world roughly with all the countries in the right place. So hearing people talking about trading with the rest of the world is always going to be a bugbear to me because they don't know what the rest of the world is. They maybe seen it on a map and gone, oh, that's good. They probably think that Greenland is the size of Africa, the entire continent of Africa, just because of the Mercator projection obviously warps things towards the poles. There's nothing down in the South Pole, but obviously in the north, towards the north, it makes Russia, the biggest country in the world anyway, not big enough according to not Boris, who's the other one? Vladimir Putin, not big enough. He needs a bit of Ukraine. He needs a bit of Georgia. I'm sure he'd like a bit of Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, which are only diddy countries to start with. But you know, whatever. But yeah, one of the main things that people who perhaps have not experienced traveling the world on cargo ships or crossing over literally every border, well, not every border post, because obviously countries have more than one border post, but crossing into every country in the world by foot or by train or by bus or on a ship. Not on my knees, because that wasn't my style, Boris. But yeah, having done that, I can appreciate certain things, like the flow of people and goods and services and capital around the EU is an inherent good thing that we should pass to our children. We've taken it off our children instead, which is cruel. There's no other word for it. It's absolutely cruel. And then the second thing is that you have this thing called economic gravity, and where we are in the UK is great. We're right in the middle of like the world, not the world, I mean that's a bit arrogant, but we're in the middle of Europe. We're just there, and we've got some of the wealthiest, most democratic, most socially progressive countries in the world on our doorstep. On our doorstep. And this is a point that I made at a meeting of Lexiteers in Liverpool a few years ago, where they were like, oh, it's a capitalist club, it's a capitalist club. I said, hang on. If I want to think about a socialist government, like governments that care, progressive governments that care about their people, I want our government to be more like Portugal in its response to the war on drugs. Shudder to call it that, because obviously we've been losing it for the last 50 years since Nixon announced it. Instead of treating people who are addicted to drugs as criminals, they treat them as some people who need medical treatment. That's a compassion that I love. I think we should be more like that. If I want to think about compassion towards refugees, asylum seekers, people fleeing for their lives from other countries, especially from wars that we might have started, I look at Germany and look at how Angela Merkel allowed 1 million people to come into their country. The compassion of that is remarkable. She's part of the Christian Democrat Party, isn't she? I mean, she's more Christian in her little finger than all of our dickheads in cabinet and in government who pretend to be Christian, like Jacob Rees-Mogg, but actually would be quite happy to eat a baby if they were feeling peckish. And then I'm gonna have to finish my tea actually, because obviously, it's going cold. And then you have Finland. I almost said Norway, no, Norway's not part of the EU. And then you have Finland. You have the education system of Finland, which is without parallel, one of the best in the world. It's absolutely fantastic. I want that education system. And all these countries are in the EU. And they're right next door to us. Economic gravity. So all the countries we trade the most with, we trade more with Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, than we do with Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa put together. All the BRICS countries put together, we trade more with Ireland. And then you've got the fact that the rest of the world, and I don't think I had to go to every country in the world to suss this out, but the rest of the world is, unfortunately, really poor. It's just poor. That's just the way it is. Sorry about that, I just had to finish that before it got cold. So there's only about 39 countries in the world that the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, regard as having advanced economies. This is for the purposes of loans and benefits and things like that, the way money flows. A lot of countries are seen as emerging economies, and then below that is developing economies. And most countries in the world are developing. And some are emerging. There's very few that are advanced. Of those countries, 30 of them are in Europe. I mean, it's just insane. Like nearly all of them are in Europe, and of them, nearly all of them are in the EU. The countries that are in Europe but not in the EU that are advanced are Norway and Switzerland, the big ones. But then you've got Liechtenstein, where nobody lives. There's more companies registered in Liechtenstein than there are people. Andorra, which is tiny. San Marino, which is tiny. And Monaco, which is tiny. So the countries that are in Europe that are advanced economies that aren't in the EU are very few and far between. That leaves us with the rest of the world to spread out over about 9 countries. In the whole of Latin America, Central America, South America, plus the whole of the Caribbean, there are no advanced economies, except obviously Puerto Rico is part of America, so that's part of America being an advanced economy. In the whole of Africa, there are no advanced economies. None, not a single one. In fact, if you put together all of the GDPs of Africa, sit down with a calculator, I've had to do this, and add them all together, it comes to less than the GDP of France. all 54 countries of Africa, all the gold that's been sold from Botswana. No, they don't have gold, do they? South Africa, all the diamonds from Botswana, all the oil from Angola, all of that put together in a given year is less than the output of France alone, just France, or Germany, or Britain for that matter. And then you have Asia. You've got 5 countries in Asia. I usually cheat this a little bit and say UN members because Taiwan is one of them and it's not a UN member. Vatican City is not a UN member either, but I digress. Israel, which the EU has a what's it called? A deal. What's it called? Association agreement. An AA has an association agreement with Israel. But Israel, again, not a very big country. It's not that much in terms of population. And then you've got the big ones. You've got Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore. And those countries are arguably doing really well. But they are on the other side of the world. And ships don't move very fast. I know this is a big shock to people who order something from China and it takes 6 weeks to arrive. How is it taking 6? Because it's coming on a ship. And that's how long it takes on a ship. You get on a ship and you think, oh, we're trucking along here. Look, I can see how fast I'm going. This is great. And then you look at the actual speed you're going and it's like 20 knots, which is, I don't know, about 25 miles an hour. It's really slow. That's at full speed on a big container ship. If you're on a yacht, the skipper will be laughing if you're going at 10 knots. So we're going at 10 knots. We're going at 15 miles an hour. Yay! Across the biggest ocean in the world. So yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, we have all these rich people, affluent people who live nearby. We only make products for affluent people. We don't make cheap electronics. We don't make cheap food. We don't make cheap shelter. What do you want us to make for these developing nations? And so as a result, we are now stuck saying, oh my God, we've got a trade deal with Northern Macedonia. And it's like, oh, great. Well done, Liz Truss. We've had that. We've had Ivory Coast, didn't we? Recently we had Mongolia. We've got a trade deal with Mongolia worth £2.50. So everyone who sells stuff to Mongolia can breathe easy now, I guess. All one person who makes yurts. I don't know. No offense to the people of Mongolia. Obviously, I mean, I'd rather it wasn't like this. I'd rather all the countries in the world were rich and we could just trade all amongst each other in a big free trade zone that encompassed the entire world and everyone could just move wherever they wanted and it was all really nice. So there was no real reason for you to leave where you were. There were no wars, so you didn't have to leave where you were. I'd like it to be like that, but it's not. This is reality. This is geography. This is the fact that Britain is in a particular part of the world, and that particular part is rich. And they are turning their back on that particularly rich part of the world to go and trade with countries that are largely, and we're talking like a sort of 50-to-1 ratio, not very rich at all. Or if they are rich, the wealth is held in the hands of very, very few individuals, while the rest of the society there lives in abject squalor. Okay, so live subtitles are very good on FaceAche. Maybe doing restream, doing the titles. Oh my God. Okay, this isn't divorce. Hi, Graham. I'm just going to run through this quickly because I've got loads of messages that I haven't read. Funny how a fish swims into our British waters. It's ours. Yes, a refugee enters our water. They're not. Yes, Walter there. Walter Howison. Walter, you're right. And this is a disgrace of the United Kingdom at the moment, in which we are adamant that we want to treat the children who are running from war, who are running away from war with their family. We're forcing them to risk their lives navigating at night to avoid Nigel Farage and the British police that we've paid to go over to Calais to patrol the beaches, risk their lives to get into the United Kingdom. And then we want to treat these children worse than we treat convicted paedophiles. Now that just blows me away. At least a convicted paedophile gets to stay in this country, can have visits from their friends in I don't know why you'd want to be friends with a convicted paedophile, but whatever. They can have visits from their friends in prison. Not so for the children of refugees who our beloved Home Secretary, Priti Patel, who is just the most awful human being ever, the bloated rattlesnake, as I like to call her, she wants to ship these children to a rock in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. As though this is the opening to a goddamn Roald Dahl novel in which children are treated so badly that they resort to, I don't know, killing each other, eating each other, giving their grandmother a magical medicine which is actually poison. I mean, God's sake, what the hell? And yet, this is the future that we have in store for the next God knows how many years while the Tories are in power, and they're still getting a lot of the vote. They are still getting a lot of the vote. Now, while I'm talking to you lovely people, I can't obviously see what's going on the news. I need more screens. I need to have like lots of screens everywhere so I can see what's going on. So if there is any movement in Brussels, I don't think there will be, but if there is, then please let me know. Boris Johnson is either going to go on his knees and get a wafer fin deal, or he's going to get no deal. Either way, he's gone to Brussels to beg. And we can't let that lie, because it's going to wind the Brexiteers up no end that he's done this, and hopefully that will mean it'll encourage the end of this dysfunctional, disgraceful, horrific premiership of this absolute scumbag, the child of a wife beater, man who cheated on his wife, who was suffering from cancer at the time, with his mistress, who then he cheated on again. He cheated on his mistress with another woman. And then they had a row about it, and then people complained. People wrote into the newspapers and they called up the radio stations to say that the neighbours shouldn't be so nosy. And if you hear domestic violence going on next door, because let's face it, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, I don't think. Yeah, you shouldn't report it because it's just being nosy. But you should grass on your neighbours if they have some people around for someone's birthday. Yeah, that's okay, grassing on your neighbours then. But if it sounds like they're actually having a fight and causing physical harm to another person, then you should just ignore it. Let it go. Let it go. Graham, I suggest you arrange meetings with all the Labour, Lib Dem, SNP, Plaid Cymru SMPs, and even Sir Keir Starmer. Maybe you can be advisors to them. Tacky. No. in another life, maybe. Not in this life. I'm not part of the political class, and I can't be. There's so many barriers to anyone who didn't go to the right school or isn't prepared to lick the boots of the people who went to the right schools, in order to stop anyone who's got any, I don't know, differing views, shall we say, into Parliament. It's quite sad, really. But that's the British system, and I don't think it's going to change until Scotland leaves, and then maybe we can make something new here. I don't know, yeah, I'd like to be involved in that. I'd like to be involved in making something new of this nation. It might just be a case of sifting through the wreckage. I don't know. But yeah, they're not going to listen to me. Ever. Obviously, this is John Lynch. Obviously, the Tories and not British people lived in general. In general, I'm being respectful too. Lived in England for 8 years and met plenty of lovely and decent people. Yeah, there are. There's some nice people who voted for Brexit. But it's coming to the crunch now. And if people still think that Brexit is a good idea, despite the fact that it's going to mean children not getting medicine, people's dogs dying unnecessarily, and people not being able to go work in another country when they could have done that now, but they won't be able to do it in a month's time. They still think it's a good idea. I don't think they're a good person. They might be nice, they might smile and politely wave, but I don't think they're a good person. I'm sorry, because they're inflicting pain and misery on others and themselves. Because let's face it, right? A lot of people who voted for Brexit were really old, okay? Baby boomers. And not everyone who voted for Brexit was a baby boomer. Not everyone who's a baby boomer voted for Brexit. Let's get that very straight and clear. Now, however, 60% of baby boomers voted for Brexit. And that is, I mean, it's shocking because 73% of people who voted between the ages of 18 and 25 or 24, they voted to stay in the EU. So this is a case of the older generation doing exactly the opposite of what the younger generation wants to do by a super duper majority in the case of the young people. And so, but when I say that they're destroying the lives of others, they're kicking the ladder away, they're making people's lives in the UK more stressful, more difficult, making their lives genuinely unpleasant now because of what they voted for. But this is it. The people who are going to be affected the most by this aren't necessarily going to be the children who are sort of 5 to 10 years old now, because hopefully in 10 years' time, we'll be back in the EU as Wangland or whatever remains of the United Kingdom at the end of all this nonsense. However, who is really going to be affected by it in the next few years are going to be the people who rely on medications coming in, old people, the people who rely on there not being 100,000 vacancies in the NHS, which we can't fill because we've made it more difficult for doctors and nurses from other countries to come and work in the UK, old people, and people who rely on the social care net to make sure that they've got enough money to buy food. Old people. So essentially, they haven't just kicked the ladder away after living quite a, I don't want to say decent life, because some people obviously haven't, and some people have obviously had it hard. But there are people who took early retirement from their cushy banking job at the age of 55 and haven't worked for 30 years and still managed to go on 5 cruises a year. And okay, I'm going to sound like a communist here. No, not a communist. What's the opposite of that? I'm going to sound like a capitalist here. But where's the work? Where's their output? What have they done for the last 30 years except make money off having money, which I don't think is a job. I think doing the dishes is a job. I think looking after kids is a job. I think cleaning the house is a job. I don't think making money out of having money should be a job, but it is, because that's the capitalist system. Okay, HughesRound, I see what you did there. Thanks, Steve. Were you the person who recommended this? Because I made a joke about what should I call this show, and I had 2 options. I had HughesRound and I had not the 9 o'clock Hughes, which I loved as well, but it would be too many words, I think. So HughesRound was a bit of an easier one. Too much, as I think Graham is trying to say we sell expensive crap to rich people, and the Brexiteers only want to trade with rich people on the other side of the planet. Well, no, I mean, they want to trade with poor people on the other side of the planet because yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what we've got to sell. I don't know what we've got in the UK that's so unique to the UK. This is what I don't get about any of this. It's like, what do we make? What have we got? What raw materials have we got that we're going to sell to Africa? What are we going to sell to China? What are we going to sell to Japan? What are we going to sell to Singapore? What? I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Time to stock up with candles, says George Ross. Is that because it's Christmas? No, because it's Brexit. The Tory party is full of pedos, charlatans, and snake oil salesmen. That's why they would rather treat other convicted pedos better than needy children. Yeah, I'm not going to argue against that. Obviously, alleged pedos, but they are definitely people who will go the extra mile to defend someone who has been arrested for sexual crimes. They will make sure there's a law put in place that means that if you are arrested for rape, then your name, or paedophilia, your name will not be released to the media, and the media is not allowed to talk about it. I mean, if you're a teacher, yeah, if you're a pop star like Cliff Richard, yeah, you can have the BBC turn up in a helicopter. But if you're an MP, specifically a Tory MP, because they're usually all Tories, aren't they? You are above the law. You're not above the law because they actually made a law so that Tory MPs who are arrested for any given crime, up to and including murder, I think, you can't find out about it. Because otherwise you would definitely, I don't know, Mark Francois. Oh, God, you would definitely stop saying Mark Francois. You would definitely get into trouble with somebody for doing that. It's against the rules. Don't do it, Mark Francois. Even if you are a poisonous little dwarf who potentially raped someone, like I don't know, Dark Francois, allegedly. Can I say he got arrested? So was I. I take penicillin as I have no spleen. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm 52, hiding in my bedroom currently. That's from Sally Ann Wilton. Another person whose life has been just turned upside down needlessly. Because, again, and I'm going to keep stressing this until I make it completely clear, We're not at war. We are not at war. When we are at war, I'll let you know, but we're not at war. So doing this to ourselves is just ridiculous. The Freckled Puny says, I think there are those who support Brexit do so in order not to lose face, because if they're wrong about Brexit, what else can they be wrong about? Well, yeah, people are wrong a lot in their life. And I think that's a good point, actually. It's this... one of the things that I would like to see taught in school, along with civics, along with critical thinking, is a sort of, I don't know, what would you call it? An introduction to psychology. Just things like, when you see something, you're not actually seeing anything. It's your brain's interpretation of the light that's going into your eyes. When you hear something, you're not actually hearing anything. It's your ears, it's your eardrums sending messages to your brain, electrical signals to your brain that your brain decodes in a certain way. And this is really important, your brain is fallible. It makes mistakes. It makes mistakes all the time. You ever gone up to someone in the street and gone, "All right, mate, how's it going?" And then realise it wasn't actually the person that you thought it was. Yes, we've all done it because your brain makes mistakes, and there's no shame in that. However, the way our education system is set up, mistakes are not allowed. If you want to do well, you've got to get 100% in everything. Never back down. Never say you've made a mistake. And our political class back up this whole idea of, you've got to always say that you're doing great. No matter what, you've always got to say that it was the right thing to do, because you never, ever make mistakes. And I think it'd be a lot healthier for the mental health and the social health of the nation if we basically admitted that we are capable of making mistakes. Sometimes we get things wrong, and there should be no shame in that, especially if you've been conned into believing something like Brexit is going to be a great thing by charlatans, car salesman, Crispin Odious, whatever his name is, that little creep, who's currently shorting everything, including the Royal Mail, in order to make millions, possibly billions, out of shorting all these British companies once the no-deal Brexit that he's been pushing for and putting loads of money into the last few years comes into fruition. I would trust someone who was, I don't know, reasonable, even if they weren't in the same political party as me or the same political bent, someone like Dominic Grieve or someone like Rory Stewart. I would trust them more than a man whose job it is to make money out of the money he's got, and the way he does that is by disaster capitalism. Or, in the case of Jeremy Corbyn, disaster socialism. That worked out well. Only joking, it didn't really. Okay, so moving swiftly on. I've got to get a haircut, by the way. I'm looking at myself on the screen here, and I'm obviously aware that my hair at the back is far too long for the hair to match the hair at the front. I might just shave it all off. I'm gonna shave it all off for charity. We can sell them Mad Jam and Union Jack tea towels. Yes, homemade jam, Mad Jam. No, I like Mad Jam even better, Glyn. Visiting lovely Wallingland. Only a short border crossing from food and amenities. Please stay Britain. I would like Britain to remain a thing because it's the country I was born into, but it's not going to, because, as I said and this is one of the good things about social media. Back in 2001 or 2, or whenever the Iraq War started, I remember having a conversation with one of my friends in a pub in Liverpool where I specifically said that if you want to take out a bad leader, you assassinate them. You blow up the plane they're on or something. You don't invade the country. You don't invade the country. They took that as meaning that I supported the Iraq War, and I didn't. I didn't go on a protest against it, unfortunately. I don't, maybe if I lived close to London and had some money at the time, I might have gone along. But the idea of invading a country to take out a dictator seemed a bit mad to me, because it's like, again, you see a crime going on across the street, and instead of, I don't know, tackling the criminal, you punch the person next to you who didn't do anything wrong. But social media was in its infancy then. There's no way of proving either way what I said or what I didn't say at the time. However, now social media exists. Everyone who said Brexit was a great idea and all the great things that Brexit was going to be, every time that Boris Johnson said that we we're going to have an oven-ready deal and the deal was going to be great, but now that means the withdrawal agreement, The withdrawal agreement? Hang on, that's an agreement. That's not a deal. You don't say, shall we go to the chippy tonight? And everyone goes, yes, we are in agreement. Let's go to the chippy. You don't call that a deal. That is not a deal. That is like the opposite of a deal. That's just people saying, yes, let's all do this for our mutual benefit. That's not a deal. A deal is a trade deal. They're not called trade. You know, we didn't have a withdrawal deal. We had a withdrawal agreement, which is the method we would withdraw from the EU. We would pay the 39 billion that we owed. We backed down on that one, didn't we? We would have this replacement to the backstop, which is the big problem with Theresa May's deal, which was going to be to have a border in the North Sea. Which is pretty much what the backstop would have achieved, but whatever. And so, yeah, but now you've got James Cleverly, ironically called Cleverly, being foisted out on television. You know how desperate they are when they start putting James Cleverly on the telly. And he's like, oh yeah, we didn't mean this deal. Oh, a bit 11th hour to tell us that now, eh? Although this deal wasn't oven ready. No, this is completely different. No, we never mentioned a trade deal, except we can go back in social media and we can see all the tweets and the posts and everything else put out by the Tories saying explicitly that they were the deal that was already was a trade deal. Not a withdrawal agreement, a trade deal. But that guy's a professional liar. He is paid to lie on behalf of his constituents, as all Conservative MPs are, I guess. But yeah, so the idea that we're in this situation in which Boris Johnson is now going to come back from Brussels, either triumphantly saying we've got a deal, we've got a deal, when it will be a surrender deal, it will be a wafer-thin deal, or I tried to convince them, but I just couldn't. I tried my best. But like, why is he even trying? Because we've been told repeatedly that no deal is a good idea. We've been told that no deal is going to be great. So why wouldn't you just go for no deal? Why even bother with the pantomime of pretending that you want this thing that you obviously don't want? I don't get it. And if no deal is going to happen, how can you blame that on the Remainers when no deal is a good thing? Again, I've said this a few times now, but we should be rewarded. We should be given knighthoods and gongs and New Year's honours and all that kind of shit because we helped a no-deal Brexit, which will make Britain prosper. That's the word they used last week. Britain will prosper. I don't think it will. I think Britain will collapse and Scotland will leave us, and quite rightly. Yeah, we will be cast adrift in the world, the only major economy that is not part of a major trading bloc, the only major economy that voted to impose trade sanctions on itself in the middle of a pandemic, the only country in the world to, instead of facilitating trade, actually made trade harder, the only advanced economy to ever do that in history. There's been some countries that weren't really advanced economies, like Venezuela, who put up barriers to trade. And yeah, everyone starved. Everyone went hungry. Millions of people left as refugees, and now they're living in Colombia and Panama and countries around Venezuela. That turned out well, didn't it? They call it the Maduro diet over there after the leader, Maduro. And basically, it's everyone just getting really skinny because they can't get food in. And people who are trying to bring food in, smuggling food into the country, are thrown in jail for smuggling food into the country. Venezuela decided to do this to themselves for God knows whatever reason, but we looked at Venezuela and thought, that's who we want to be like. Let's be more like them. That'll be terrific. We'll do really well. The class system in the UK, this is some tacky, is a big problem and does not serve all British people. It's very harmful. Political hierarchical class in the UK needs to end. Yes, it's basically if you went to private school. James Cleverly went to private school, of course. Just literally, go and Google after you finish watching this in 10 minutes time. Go and Google anyone you like in Parliament who's in charge at the moment. Anyone in the police, anyone in the BBC, anyone in media. Just pick a name and just check on their Wikipedia page, does it say they went to an independent school? Because that's a euphemism for a public school, which is a euphemism for a private fee-paying school that you can only go to if you're filthy rich or you're one of the golden ticket Willy Wonka holders who manages to go there as a little token gesture to justify somehow these elite schools that make millions of pounds every year to justify their charitable status, so they don't have to pay the same tax as Starbucks, I guess, don't. Unfortunately, yes, Oliver. Do you think Brexiteers can get away with a no-deal Brexit? No, I think it's going to kill a lot of people and make a lot of people very angry. I think there's going to be civil unrest next year. I think there's going to be shortages in the supermarkets. I think if you're watching this, you know my opinion on this. I think you should be stocking up. I think you should be stocking up now for January, February, March. I think you should have at least enough food for 3 months. Just stuff everything you can in. But realistically, we should still be able to get crap food in. You know, tinned food, stuff like that. War food, let's call it. So Hershey's chocolate bars, Spam, that'll be fine. And baked beans, I guess. No toast, because obviously there'll be no flour. But things like fresh fruit and veg, there's going to be massive shortages. I can't see how there's not going to be a shortage of it if lorries containing the fresh fruit and veg are stuck at ports trying to get into the country. Or, as also will probably happen, people just don't want to drive into this country because when they're trying to drive back out, they're stuck at the port for 7 hours and they're not getting paid for that because truck drivers generally get paid by the mile, not by the hour. Teaching civics and critical thinking. Yes, civics, critical thinking, and the fact that you can be wrong. The fact that the human brain is not infallible. I think that would be a really good lesson to learn in school. But unfortunately, there are many people out there who honestly believe that they are just the most important person in the universe. They have a personal connection with the man who invented the universe and they speak to him. And also, magically, they're going to survive their own deaths. Unfortunately, these myths and legends have been passed down for centuries, and it's far be it from me to cast aspersions on them, but I don't think they help. I don't think the idea that you are so important that you will survive your own death is a great thing to teach children. Or that, kids from a different faith are going to hell. That's not a good thing to teach either. Okay, I'm going to just dive straight into the messages here because we've only got 7 minutes left before I have to go and take some more headache pills because my head is absolutely killing me. Don't panic. Gove will sort it out. Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah, Gove. People say, oh, he's just as bad. He's just as bad as Boris Johnson. I want to pick people up on this, right? He's not, right? He is, because he's more evil. But in the same way that Pence is possibly more evil than Trump, he's not as charismatic and he's not as likable, and people don't like him. He would never get millions of people to follow and hang off his every word. And what's his first name? Michael. Michael, yeah, as he walks down the street. He doesn't make people feel proud of being British. I mean, he makes me feel embarrassed to be human, to be honest with you. But so they don't have that popular appeal. We hear this argument time and time again. And all I can say is no one replaced Hitler, no one replaced Idi Amin, no one replaced Colonel Gaddafi, who was as bad as the big bad, okay? No one replaced Pol Pot. No one replaced Stalin, who was as bad as Stalin. It just didn't happen. Well, possibly Putin now, but when Putin goes, whoever replaced him won't be as bad as Putin. It's just because you get to a point, and I don't think you can go down from there. Occasionally, maybe there are a few situations in which it did go down, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. Yeah. Who replaced F.W. de Klerk, eh? Oh, Nelson Mandela. Shit. Who replaced Trump? Joe Biden. Oh, okay. And then people go, oh yeah, Wall Street's are celebrating. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Have you not seen Trump's Twitter feed over the last few years going on and on about stocks and shares in Wall Street? I'm like, oh yeah, he's actually a massive socialist, Trump. He was part of the Occupy Wall Street movement. You know, he's there with 99%. Oh, fuck off. I mean, oh, go away. Damn, I'm not supposed to swear on these. Congratulations. Oh, I've reached 100 messages. That's really good. I haven't read them all, obviously. I'm going to have to skip through a few of these. Freckle Pony, Puny. This is a pony. The Freckle Puny says, deal or no deal, the difference between a slow puncher or a blowout. Either way, you're still left knackered tyres when we come to a halt. Just one just happens more rapidly than the other. No. It's like you're trucking along in a car on the motorway with the kids in the back. And then, for no reason whatsoever, you slam it into first. It's a good chance you'll crash, good chance you'll blow up the engine. Whatever happens, you'll slow down, all the other cars will whiz past you, and then it's going to take you a long time to try and catch back up to those cars if you can repair your engine. Which is one of the best analogies that I've heard. That wasn't mine, by the way. Just call me Token. Some Sally. John says, surely you can avoid a blowout at all costs. No deal will result in more death for sure. Yeah, John, you're right. And I don't want. I'm sorry, I might sound like I'm being flippant about no deal. I'm not. It's going to be absolutely catastrophic. A wafer thin deal is going to be pretty catastrophic, but not quite as bad as literally suddenly putting massive tariffs, so sanctions essentially, on everything we export. Everything we sell to the world will suddenly become more expensive for the people buying it. And the money, the extra money that's put on top of these things that we try and sell to the rest of the world is not going to be going to our pockets. It's not going to be going to the pockets of the manufacturers or the makers or the service providers in the United Kingdom. It will be going to the local governments of the government of whichever country or the EU that this is going to. The thing you Remoners are overlooking is the cheap shoes we can buy after a no-deal Brexit. Do you know a really ironic thing? One of my mates, Chris, he's lived in China for many years, and he used to, he's a teacher over there, and he used to come over, well, he still does, like Christmas and New Year, and the summer for a few weeks, and he'd always buy loads of shoes when he was over here, because he was like size 12 or something, and he couldn't get the shoes to his size in China, even though they were made in China. Porridge to water down into gruel. Yeah, stock up on your porridge. Ooh, oh yeah. Oh well, at least Burns Night won't be too affected on the 25th of January. If they can get away with it, not the people. When will this stop? Says Mads. And even if we get a deal, then what? Will the UK just break it again? Yes. No one trusts us anymore. We have given up all semblance of trust, of honour, of decency, of integrity. We've sacrificed it all on the altar of this idiotic Brexit that was sold to us by billionaires who wanted to make a bit more money, pay a little bit less tax, disaster capitalism, as Jacob Rees-Mogg's father wrote a book called Blood on the Streets about disaster capitalism, how to make money out of a crisis. Blood on the Streets. Yeah, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Last few messages now. Politics, economics and law need to be mandatory subjects too. I don't agree with that necessarily about mandatory subjects in schools. I think that English and math should be mandatory. Everything else, I think they should be optional. And when I talk about civics and when I talk about sort of learning about psychology, I'm not saying that this should be taught to a standard where you have to do a GCSE in it or an A-level or BTEC or whatever. I'm talking about actually just having those lessons rather than RE, maybe have it as an alternative. Hi, Graham. You're starting to sound like a prepper. Really? Spam? From Kevin? A prepper? Yes, I'm very preppy. No, I don't have any spam here, but I'm fully prepped for the next few months to make sure that I've got enough food for the next few months because it's going to be an absolute nightmare. I mean, it is. There's no point in pretending that it's going to be all right. We're going to get through it. It's going to be a nightmare, just like COVID. We could see in March was going to be a nightmare, but instead of locking down the country, we kept it open for 2 weeks. The Prime Minister went around shaking people's hands, bragging about it, gave over this big announcement. He held it off, the lockdown announcement, he held it off so we could have the Cheltenham Festival, millions of people, not millions, but thousands of people at the Cheltenham Festival, which was run by a woman called Dido Harding. I don't know why that name sticks in my head. I've never heard of her. And also, I think he wanted a baby shower for Carrie for his latest bastard spawn. So we locked down 2 weeks later than we should have, and thousands of people died as a result. Marie says, I can't buy stuff from the UK after no deal, not just the custom tax, but all posts from outside the EU having a handling fee of £6. Yeah, Marie, you're absolutely right. The handling fees alone are going to be catastrophic for anyone selling anything that's less than a tenner. Well, it's going to be catastrophic for everybody, but if you're selling something for less than a tenner and the handling charges and the customs you got to pay, it costs more than the product itself, yeah, we're putting international trade sanctions on ourselves, and we haven't lost a war. Why? Lack of fresh water, no electricity, no internet. Sally, I don't think that I think we might see some localized loss of power now and again next year, just because so much of our power is imported from abroad, and if it gets snarled up at the ports, there's going to be a problem there. I don't think it's going to be a case of people freezing to death in their own homes. Obviously, if the gas is cut for a few hours, I'm sure they could make the electricity work or something like that. It's going to be difficult. I don't know. I don't want to predict that much. Fresh water, this is a problem with the chemicals that we put into fresh water to make them safe, essentially come from the EU. So, yeah, there's a possibility. I don't know what to say. I really don't. I don't want to sound. I don't want to say, oh yeah, all this stuff's going to happen, and I get lampooned for saying, oh yeah, Graham, you thought that the water was going to be shut off, and it wasn't. I don't think it's very likely. What is very likely is that we'll go to the supermarket and certain products that we buy every week, week in, week out, are not going to be there. Just like in March when we went to the supermarket and things were gone. And I think we're going to be in the same situation. But the difference is in March, it was a demand side problem. So no problem with the supply. It was just that lots of people wanted these things all at the same time. A demand side problem takes a month or so to sort out. A supply side problem is a much, much more difficult and much more pressing, urgent matter to deal with, because you have a supply side problem. That's not something that's going to be sorted out rapidly in any form of imagination. Anyway, I've got 3 minutes over my due date. I should have a little alarm clock, shouldn't I, to tell me. Talk about the Northern Ireland Protocol Agreement tomorrow, please. That's off David Glenn. Yeah, I'll try that. If you prefer peck chopped pork, manufactured in Poland. Britain never lost World War II, but I'm not sure we won the peace. Yeah. Well, we're still fighting World War II in a lot of people's heads in this country. And the one fact that just drives me mad about all this, about the EU being our enemy, is that there's only 29 members of NATO, that group that arguably kept the peace in the 20th century, well, kept there from being a nuclear conflict in the 20th century, or at least kept the Soviet Union from invading the rest of Europe, because we were all part of NATO. We had America's backing. 21 of those 29 countries are in the EU. And if they're our enemies, I mean, I don't want to think of who our allies now are. Okay, so that's it for now, for today. US Senate has authorized water to be traded on the futures market in Wall Street. Just had that from John B. Craddock. That is just unbelievable. Well, I say it's unbelievable. Is anything unbelievable anymore? If there's money to be made, let's make some money. Okay, so I'll come back to this tomorrow when we'll know what Boris Johnson's been up to today in Brussels. Maybe he just went over because he wants some pancakes. I don't know. But either way, I think it's going to be a humiliating climb down for the king of... I was going to say comedy there, but he's not actually funny, is he? He's like Pennywise. He's like a scary clown. He's a clown, but he's terrifying because of his evil powers, I guess. But yeah, a figure of ridicule. I hope he goes back to being, because I don't like the idea of such an evil person having so much power. Okay, I've got messages here. As a lad in London who now lives in the Philippines, we used to power cuts, typhoons, earthquakes and shite food. We just get on with it. We have a saying, OA, overacting. Yeah, but the difference is that the typhoons and the earthquakes in the Philippines are not caused by people. They don't vote for the earthquake. They don't vote for the typhoons. We voted for Brexit. We voted to make this disaster happen. We voted for the iceberg. And we are ploughing full on ahead into it. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been great reading your messages and having this chat, and I will be back again tomorrow at 1 o'clock on various platforms. Quite enjoying this. See how far I can get away with it. And until then, hello, good